Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today, I bring you another shocking story about Ly Hoai Ca and Officer Hùng, a tragic episode where the truth, hidden for years, finally comes to light. The woman Hùng had always called mother, the one who raised him from childhood, turns out to be only his foster mother. She had kept this secret buried deep for many years, driven by resentment and hidden schemes. When Hoai Ca appeared in Hung's life, her genuine love for him unintentionally became a thorn in the foster mother's eyes. From that moment, a dark series of events began to unfold. Hoai Ca faced one misfortune after another. Once she fell down the stairs in what seemed like an accident. Another time she drank from a cup laced with medicine and was hospitalized. And soon after, malicious rumors spread throughout the village, leaving her misunderstood and isolated. No one knew that all of it was orchestrated by the foster mother herself. But heaven's net is vast, no sin can be hidden forever. One night, Hùng caught her secretly carrying a small bag containing strange medicine to Hoai Ca's house. Sensing something was wrong, he quietly reported it and worked with the local police to set up surveillance. And then, just as she was about to act, the police stormed in and caught her red-handed. Flashlights flickered. The sound of handcuffs clinked coldly in the dark. She lowered her head in silence, saying nothing. And Hùng stood still, eyes heavy with grief. The woman who once raised him with love was now facing the law for her own misdeeds. Hoai Ca wept, her voice soft as a breeze. I don't hate her. I just hope she'll stop, so no one else gets hurt. The episode ends with Hùng silently watching the police car drive away, its flashing blue and red lights reflecting on his tired face. Beside him, Hoai Ca held his hand tightly, saying nothing, yet her eyes full of faith. They both knew that no matter how painful the truth might be, it must be faced. And justice will always find its way. Stay tuned until the end of today's video to learn the full story, the foster mother's confession, and what awaits Hoai Ca and Hùng next. After months on the run, Hung's mother finally reappeared. The news spread through the quiet village like a spark in dry grass, turning the calm atmosphere heavy and uneasy. People still remembered her, the woman once known for her devotion and her constant saying, "Do good and heaven will bless you." But in the end, it was she who had brought misery upon the very people who once called her family. That afternoon, the sky turned gloomy. Thick gray clouds stretched across the horizon, as if warning of an ill omen. She appeared quietly on the dirt path leading to the rice fields, frail, dressed in a faded brown shirt, wearing a torn conical hat. Her trembling hand clutched a small cloth bag, eyes darting around anxiously. Each step she took left deep prints in the wet earth, every sound echoing down the silent alley like a blade cutting into the past. It was near Hoai Ca's house, the very place where so many painful memories remained. There, tears had fallen, promises had been broken, and now the past had returned to demand justice. For days, the local police had been watching her in secret. They noticed she often appeared around dusk, lurking at the end of the alley, staring at Hoai Ca's house from afar with eyes both fearful and restless, as if torn between guilt and obsession. Sometimes, she stood for hours in the shadows, silently watching the dim light flickering inside before turning away into the night. But today was different. She moved closer, her steps quicker, more determined, as if she had made up her mind. The old cloth bag swung lightly in her hand, holding something inside, perhaps evidence of a new crime, or the final mark of an exhausted fugitive. A figure hidden at the far end of the alley raised his hand in signal. The undercover officers tightened their formation. The air grew tense, stretched like a bowstring. Suddenly, a commanding voice shattered the silence. "Freeze! Police!" Startled, The woman's face went pale. She spun around and ran. Her hat fell off, rolling across the muddy ground. She struggled to flee through the narrow lane, her feet slipping in the wet soil, sandals slapping frantically as her breath came in gasps. But within seconds, 2 officers closed in, one grabbing her arms, the other securing her from behind. The cold metallic click of the handcuffs broke through the still air. She collapsed to her knees, shoulders trembling, her wrinkled face bowed low. The evening wind swept through, carrying dry leaves across the road. From a distance, a few villagers stood silently watching. No one spoke, only a soft sigh drifted across the quiet space. One of the officers spoke clearly. "You are under arrest under a warrant for intentional injury and attempted harm. Please cooperate." The woman lifted her head, her eyes red and wet with tears. Her voice cracked as she stammered. I just wanted her to pay. I didn't mean to kill anyone." But her words faded, weak and broken, swallowed by the cold evening wind. Far away, the sun sank behind the bamboo grove, leaving one last streak of orange across the dull sky. And at the end of the alley, Hung stood still, his face expressionless. He watched silently as the frail woman who once raised him was led away in handcuffs, her silhouette shrinking into the distance. Everything ended in silence. Only the wind, the dust, and the dying light remained. The long days of her escape were finally over. And justice, though late, had at last found its way home. The news reached Hung later that same night. It was just after dusk. A fine drizzle fell, its tiny droplets tapping softly on the tin roof of the commune office. Hung sat at his desk, eyes fixed on an unfinished report, when the sudden ring of the phone shattered the silence. He picked up. The voice on the other end was low, steady, and brief, but enough to make his heart stop for a beat. "Hung, we've caught her. She was apprehended near Hoài Ca's house. She's being held at the district station. Come right away." The phone trembled slightly in his hand. His breath faltered. In that instant, the room seemed to sink into an endless void. The wind whistled through the crack in the door, blending with the sound of rain hitting the roof. Like the heavy, rhythmic knocks of fate itself. Hung froze, staring blankly into the air, his heart weighed down by a pain he couldn't name. He had told himself many times this day would come, yet now that it had, the ache was unbearable. Memories rushed back. The image of the mother who once carried him across the stream. Her frail figure blowing gently on a spoon of hot porridge to feed him when he was sick. Those moments replayed in his mind like an old film. But every frame was now stained by the cruel truth. That the same woman had tried again and again to harm the person he loved most. Hoài Ca. Between family and justice, only an empty space remained, deep, cold, and endless. Hung grabbed his raincoat and dashed outside. The night sky was pitch black, the drizzle thickening into rain. Headlights sliced through the misty darkness, reflecting on the slick, muddy road. The wind lashed at him, the rain stung his face, but he didn't slow down. He only wanted to get there, to face it, to end it, to finally lay this burden to rest. The district police station glowed under fluorescent lights. As he entered, a guard nodded slightly. "She's calm now. You can go in if you want." The door to the holding room creaked open. A dim yellow light spilled across the cracked walls. In the corner sat a frail woman, hands trembling as she held a cup of cold water. Her silver hair hung loose, her face lined with exhaustion and regret. When the door opened, she slowly lifted her head. Her eyes, clouded and weary, spoke of fear, guilt, and endless sleepless nights. For a moment, when their eyes met, time seemed to stop. There was no longer a police officer and a criminal, only a mother and her son, facing each other across a gulf of pain that words could never bridge. Hung sat down opposite her. His voice was low, hoarse, trembling with emotion. "Mother, please confess. I'm not angry anymore, but you must take responsibility for what you've done." He paused, meeting her gaze, steady, calm, and sad. "If you truly repent, the law will still give you a chance to start over." "I believe that." Silence filled the room. The clock on the wall ticked softly, counting every breath. She sat still, her thin hands shaking, tears falling one by one onto the cold tile floor. Her voice broke, weak but filled with despair. "I know. I was wrong, Hung. I was so afraid of this day. But I'm tired now. I can't run anymore." Hung's gaze softened. He no longer saw a criminal, only a broken soul consumed by loneliness and hate. He stood up quietly, set her cup back on the table, and whispered, "Rest now. I just hope this time you truly want to make things right. I still believe you can do one last good thing, Mother." He turned and walked out, his shoulders heavy. The yellow light stretched his shadow down the corridor, long and weary. Behind him, the sound of his mother's sobs echoed through the stillness. Fragile, remorseful, and filled with sorrow. The iron door shut with a metallic clang, echoing in the night. Outside, the rain hadn't stopped. The wind swept through the trees, their rustling leaves whispering a sad farewell. Hung paused on the steps, looking up at the pitch-dark sky. In his eyes, the distant streetlights flickered faintly, like tears that refused to fall. That night, he understood. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It's simply the only way to bring peace to one's heart. And though the road ahead would be difficult, he chose to keep walking. Because somewhere behind him, Hoài Ca was still waiting. That afternoon, as the sun tilted behind the hill, its golden rays stretched across the dirt road leading to their home. The whole world seemed wrapped in a soft, pale hue, warm yet tinged with melancholy. A gentle wind blew from the distant fields, carrying the scent of damp earth and freshly cut grass. Hung returned after a long day. His old motorbike came to a stop at the porch, its tires still caked with mud from the midday drizzle. He turned off the engine and sat quietly for a moment, his eyes distant. Each breath formed a faint mist in the cool air, merging into the hazy twilight. Inside, Hoài Ca was folding clothes. Hearing the familiar sound of the engine, she looked up, a flicker of worry in her eyes. When Hung stepped in, she froze. His face was pale, his hair damp, and his red-rimmed eyes spoke of a storm that had raged within. He gave a small nod, pressed his lips together, and exhaled a long, weary sigh. She didn't need to ask, she already knew. The matter concerning his mother had come to an end. They sat at the old wooden table, the same one that had witnessed countless warm meals and simple, happy stories. The room was unchanged, yet the air felt heavier than ever. The ticking clock and the rustle of the wind through the shutters only deepened the silence that hung between them. After a long pause, Hung finally spoke, his voice hoarse and low, each word dragging against the weight in his chest. "I saw her at the district station. She's weak now, thinner, older. Her hands were trembling, her hair completely gray, but she still tried to look me in the eye. She said she knows she was wrong. She'll confess, she just wants peace. And she asked that we forgive her, even just a little." He stopped. His gaze drifted toward the window, where the last rays of sunlight shimmered through the palm leaves. Memories flooded back, his mother hunched over the stove in their small kitchen, her lullabies when he was sick, the sound of her slippers in the rain as she searched for medicine. Those moments once filled him with love. Now they only made his heart ache. Because the same hands that had cared for him had also brought pain to the woman he loved. Hoài Ca remained silent. The fading sunlight touched her face, illuminating her calm, steady eyes full of quiet strength. After a while, she reached out, resting her hand gently on his shoulder. Her voice was soft, but warm, carrying a tenderness that seemed to heal something inside him. I understand. She's only human, Hung. Everyone loses their way sometimes. She hurt me, yes. There were nights I couldn't even close my eyes from fear. But if she truly wants to make things right now, then I'm willing to forgive. Her words were as light as the evening breeze, yet powerful enough to make Hung's heart tremble. He turned to look at her, almost disbelieving, as though the storm had cleared and light had finally broken through. She was still the same gentle, kind, always choosing love over hatred. Hung took her hand, his voice shaking. Thank you. Thank you for being kinder than I am. I don't think I could survive all this without you. Hoài Ca smiled faintly, a quiet, peaceful smile that seemed to dissolve every shadow in the room. She leaned her head on his shoulder, listening to the steady rhythm of his heartbeat, warm, alive, and close. Outside, the clouds had cleared. The sky opened wide, the sunset draping the palm trees in golden light. A soft wind stirred the curtain, carrying the faint scent of grapefruit blossoms from the backyard. They sat there together, saying nothing. Only their hands intertwined, sharing warmth, sharing forgiveness. In that moment, Hung understood. There is no justice stronger than love, no punishment deeper than remorse, and no miracle greater than forgiveness. In Hoài Ca's eyes, he saw the reflection of a new life, peaceful, slow, and worth living. Outside, the day's final light melted away, leaving a soft golden glow across the porch. It was a quiet evening after so much turmoil, and in that calm, love and forgiveness had become the only light guiding them forward. A few days later, when the first seasonal rains had just passed, an official notice appeared on the district bulletin board. Tran Thi Hoa, prosecuted for intentional injury, threats to life, and defamation. The news spread quickly through the village, stirring murmurs everywhere. Some sighed in pity, some shook their heads in disbelief, while others stayed silent. For no one had imagined that the once gentle, hard-working woman would fall so far. The day of the trial dawned clear. Sunlight poured across the courtyard of the district people's court, bright and golden. Hung arrived early, wearing a simple shirt, his expression somber. He took a seat at the back, silently watching the woman who had raised him, now sitting in the defendant's dock. She bowed her head, frail hands clasped together, her thin frame trembling slightly. Wisps of silver hair fell over her face, unable to hide the exhaustion and remorse etched into every line. When the clerk finished reading the indictment, the room fell utterly silent. The ceiling fan creaked slowly, marking time to the rhythm of the judge's words. She did not defend herself. She did not argue. Each time she was questioned, she simply nodded, her voice rough and low. I plead guilty. It was all my fault. I have nothing else to say. Hung's hands clenched on his knees. His chest tightened painfully, torn between pity and anger, grief and helplessness. He had once hoped his mother would find redemption, but now she was only a frail figure bowing before the law. Then, from the audience seats, a familiar figure stood up. It was Hoài Ca, dressed in a simple beige dye, her face serene yet resolute. She walked to the front, holding a sheet of paper written in her own neat handwriting. The entire courtroom watched each step, quiet but firm. She bowed slightly, then spoke in a soft but steady voice as she handed the paper to the presiding judge. I would like to submit a petition for leniency. I only wish for her to have a chance to make amends. Because, after all, she is the mother of the man I love. Her voice rang out, clear yet trembling, like a bell echoing through the heavy silence. People turned to look at her, a woman who had once been the victim, now standing up to forgive the person who had nearly cost her life. The courtroom went completely still. Even the seasoned judge paused, glancing at her with newfound respect. Hung looked toward his wife. Light streamed through the window, bathing her in a soft glow. In that moment, she seemed almost ethereal. A symbol of compassion, a woman whose strength came not from defiance, but from mercy. The old woman lifted her head, eyes blurred with tears. She could hardly believe what she'd heard. Her trembling hands covered her face as sobs escaped her lips. "I don't deserve it. I don't deserve her forgiveness." Hoài Ca bowed her head slightly, saying nothing more. Because to her, forgiveness was not about forgetting. It was about release, freeing both herself and the one who had lost their way. The judge's gavel struck sharply, bang, ending the trial. But in the hearts of everyone present, another verdict resounded. The quiet judgment of conscience, humanity, and redemption. Outside, as they left the courthouse, Hung walked beside Hoài Ca in silence. He said nothing, only held her hand tightly. Her palm was warm, soft, dissolving the cold weight inside his chest. Under the golden sunlight of late afternoon, two figures walked side by side, and behind them, the storm had passed, leaving a clearer, quieter sky, and more reflection than ever before. The verdict was announced. The judge's voice rang clearly through the wide courtroom. The defendant, Tran Th, is sentenced to imprisonment in accordance with the law. However, the court grants a reduction in sentencing. Due to her sincere confession and the petition for clemency submitted by the victim, Ms. Ly Hoài Ca. The words echoed through the still air, heavy, like the toll of a bell marking the end of a misguided life. No one spoke. Only the faint rustle of papers and the quiet scratch of a pen signing the verdict broke the silence, a silence so deep it ached. The elderly woman sat motionless, her frail shoulders trembling. When the final words were read, she bowed her head low. A single tear slipped from her hollow eyes, falling onto her thin, wrinkled hand, then disappeared into the cold wood of the table. It wasn't a tear of anger or regret, it was the moment she finally awakened to the truth. As the guards led her to the transport vehicle, her steps were slow, hands still bound, yet no longer resisting. She turned her head one last time. Her gaze found Hung and Hoài Ca, standing together at the back of the room. He held his wife's hand, his eyes sad but free of anger. And she, calm, gentle, looked back with quiet compassion, no trace of bitterness. At that moment, tears streamed down the old woman's cheeks. Amid the salt and sorrow, the light of repentance flickered faintly within her. She nodded softly, a gesture of gratitude, of farewell, before stepping into the vehicle. The door closed with a metallic click, carrying away her broken sobs into the fading afternoon. Outside, the breeze stirred the courtyard. The faint scent of erica blossoms drifted from the roadside trees. The clothes of those leaving the trial fluttered lightly in the wind, and soon the murmurs faded, leaving only the tender stillness of a dying day. Hung watched as the police car disappeared at the end of the dirt road. The wind lifted his hair slightly. His gaze was distant, his voice low but steady. Maybe this is truly the beginning for her and for us. Hoài Ca turned to him, a soft smile touching her lips, her eyes shimmering in the sunset. Yes, the past is over now. What remains is the path of forgiveness and hope. They stood there together, under the vast golden sky. The last sunlight stretched across the narrow road, weaving through the old palm leaves and glinting softly on their hair. Their shadows merged on the damp red earth, long and still. No more howling wind. No more heavy hearts. Only the quiet peace of two souls who had chosen forgiveness as their freedom. From afar, the sound of church bells drifted through the calm evening. The storm of the past had finally passed. And along the village road, A new beginning was dawning. For love, for compassion, and for the enduring belief that no matter how lost a person may be, they can always find their way back to the light. Stay tuned for the next episode as Hùng and Hoài Ca begin a new chapter, rebuilding their home, expanding their work, and embracing the peace they've long waited for. Will happiness truly return after the storm? Or are new trials quietly waiting ahead? If you've been moved by this story, leave a comment below to share your thoughts. Your words, even just one, are the inspiration that keeps these heartfelt stories alive. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next episode of Hoài Ca and Officer Hùng.
Xin chào tất cả mọi người, lại là mình đây. Hiện tại thì mình đang hoàn thành những bước cuối cùng của video về câu chuyện của Ly Hoai Ca và cảnh sát Hùng. Hôm nay thì là một tập khá là hấp dẫn khi mà mẹ của Hùng bị bắt. Vậy thì mọi chuyện sẽ diễn ra như thế nào thì mọi người hãy theo dõi hết video nhé. Đừng bỏ lỡ bất kỳ video nào mọi người nhé. Vì sẽ có rất là nhiều video hấp dẫn. Và hiện tại thì mình đang hoàn thành những bước cuối cùng. Bây giờ là mình đang chọn tiêu đề cho video. Bây giờ cũng khá là trễ rồi. Hôm nay mình bị lên video hơi muộn này. Bây giờ là 6 giờ 58 phút rồi. Cảm ơn mọi người đã xem video. Tạm biệt mọi người.